one baby died the entire first year of my pediatrics training in England. Not one. To me, it was remarkable, unheard of. I was utterly shocked. Coming from Malawi, in Africa, I was used to seeing babies die every day in our hospital. And then during the second year of my training in England, we finally had a child die. I was amazed at the reaction. The whole world around me came to a standstill. I saw doctors and nurses running up and down the hallways. Some of them were crying, comforting one another. Others were trying to comfort the family. It was a tragedy of epic proportion. And at that time, it suddenly dawned on me that this is how it's supposed to be. This is how it should be, even in Malawi, in Africa. Every baby deserves to live. It set me thinking about the so many newborns that died in my hands back home in Malawi. Not because I did not know how to save them, but I did not have the tools to enable me save them. And unfortunately, what I experienced happens all across Africa. And so in Africa, every year, 1 million newborns die. The heartbreak is 80% of these deaths are preventable. Preventable with technologies that have been available in the United States for over 50 years. All across the globe, it's three things really that kill these newborns. Either they are born too early, they have an infection on board, or they suffer from an injury during the time of delivery. At that time, whilst I was in England, I thought to myself, even if I lament for years, the outcomes back home were not going to change. So I made a very difficult decision to return home and be part of a team that would push for improved survival of our newborns. Fast forward, I remember it was August. Stepped foot at the hospital I work in. Usual overcrowded wards. Very few supplies. And that morning, my first day back, we lost 3 babies. It was heartbreaking. I questioned my decision to go back. But deep down, I felt I had to be part of the solution. And so I stayed on. Looked for partners that were doing something to try and improve newborn survival. And in those early years, we partnered with Saving Newborn Lives. They were pushing an intervention that we call kangaroo mother care. So this is a way of looking after small babies, preterm babies, or low birth weight babies, where you nurse them skin to skin on mom's chest. And there is evidence that you improve survival. You improve the long-term survival and even their neurodevelopmental outcomes. You improve their nutrition. You keep them warm. You prevent infections in these babies. But I quickly realized that you can only do kangaroo mother care in babies who are stable. And they don't die when they are stable. They die when they're unstable. And that's where we needed to put our energy on. And I knew what had worked in England. It was technology on top of other things. But the technology that I saw in England was this really expensive, complex technology. And I thought to myself, will our government be able to afford this? Will the technology withstand the harsh environment in Africa? The heat, the humidity, the dust, the frequent power outages. You don't know whether you're on 120 or 240 or 300. What about maintenance? These were the questions that were lingering in my mind. We were used every year getting containers full of donated equipment. And I knew the equipment would only work for a few days and it would break down and end up in the equipment graveyard. Malawi has some interesting statistics. We're number 1 on the globe in terms of the preterm birth rate. So nearly 20% of our pregnant women deliver early. And half of these babies who are born early struggle to breathe. Without any form of support, they will die. In countries like the United States, you either use mechanical ventilation or you put them on what we call BARB or CPAP, CPAP standing for continuous positive airway pressure. What CPAP does, it opens the little airways and the air sacs of these little babies, and so reducing the work of breathing. But I knew these 2 technologies were too expensive for Malawi. At that time, we knew maybe mechanical ventilation way too complex. Maybe we try CPAP, but there was no CPAP device. So I remember those days with my fellow doctors, we improvised CPAP. We take a simple plastic bottle, put some tubings in, connect it to an oxygen source. And as long as it babbled, we thought we're providing CPAP. When in actual fact, we knew what we were doing was treating ourselves and not the baby in front of us. But sometimes you do things that keep the hope alive. And fast forward, one morning, we were visited by 2 engineers from the United States. Typical engineers, they were looking for problems to solve. So they came at the right time. We quickly gave them the CPAP challenge. We said, this is what we really need. So they flew back to the United States. 3 years down the line, they brought us a prototype. We were so excited because that prototype, we didn't care. It was in a plastic container, delivered exactly the same therapeutic flow and pressures as machines in the United States. What we cared about was to try it on our patients. And so we got ethical approval and tried this on several of our preterm babies who were struggling to breathe. We were able to demonstrate a 40% improvement in survival for these preterm babies. This mirrors exactly what you saw in the United States in the 1960s when you introduced these machines. We were thrilled. It was such a moment in our department. Suddenly, there was a light at the end of the dark tunnel. But we quickly realized that it's one thing to innovate for new, wonderful technologies. It's wonderful to measure how many lives you're able to save. But for you to really make an impact, you must be able to deliver those technologies to where it matters most. And that is what we call distribution. It is such a pain in a broken financial market of Africa. These things they don't teach you in medical school or engineering school. So we had to look for the right partner. We looked for a company that specializes in product design and has a unique focus in bringing global products into market. They joined our team in 2012. And within 2 years, they were able to obtain the CE mark, which is an international seal of approval for medical products. They were able to find the right manufacturing partner who manufactured the device as per the international global quality standards. We called the Baba CPAP machine Pumani. Pumani is a Malawian word that means breathe restfully. With a commercial device at hand, it was time to talk to our government. Very supportive. So we partnered with our Minister of Health and scaled up Pumani in all the district hospitals and mission hospitals in Malawi. But in scaling up Pumani, we saw babies who were cold, babies who were jaundiced, babies who had an infection on board. And we saw the frustration on the faces of those clinicians and nurses who wanted to do more. So over the past several years, we've worked with hundreds and hundreds of engineering students back home in Malawi and in the United States to create a whole load of low-cost technologies. Technologies that we create have to fulfill a certain criteria. They have to be effective, they have to be rugged enough, they have to be affordable, and they have to be sustainable. This whole bunch of technologies, we've come to call it the NEST, standing for Newborn Essential Solutions and Technology. This bunch of technologies not only addresses breathing, it addresses all the three major killers of the newborn. Addresses issues to do with nutrition, issues around infection, issues around jaundice, issues around how you give fluids to these babies. What have we learned on this journey? Sometimes the most heartbreaking, challenging problems have a surprisingly simple, low-cost solution. My country now saves thousands of newborn lives every year. Babies who would have died. We save them using these low-cost technologies, which keep on working in environments where high-tech Western solutions fail. Call it hacking or inappropriate technology. Whilst technology is so important, the secret lies in the mind shift by those frontline health workers who realize this can be solved and were empowered to be part of that solution. Our vision is not just to deliver these technologies across the continent of Africa and beyond, but rather to create such an enduring environment that closes the equity gap for the newborn in Africa. And we know we can. There's never been a better time to do it than today, when thousands and thousands of our pregnant women are no longer delivering at home. They're coming to the health facility to deliver. When our political leaders have made a commitment to accelerate reduction in neonatal mortality in Africa. Every newborn, the world over, deserves a safe, secure environment in which to thrive. I look forward to a time 10, 20 years from today when many more Africans will be able to share the TEDMED stage. Even in these challenging circumstances, every health worker in all the regions across the world can be part of making this vision a practical, achievable reality. Thank you.